When a human passes away, we create a tombstone as a memorial. Friends and family visit a grave to remember the times that we had with that person while they were still alive. Memorial bots are another way to celebrate the life of someone who has passed away. A memorial bot is created by taking the messages sent by a deceased person when they were alive and passing it through a machine learning model in order to make a bot that replicates the deceased person. Eugenia Kuyda is the CEO of Luka, a company that builds AI products. When her friend Roman Mazurenko suddenly died, she worked with her team to make a bot that replicates his speech patterns. In our interview, we discussed memorial bots, deep learning, and the product that Luka is working on right now, Replica, a personal AI friend for anyone. This was a very interesting and touching show about the intersection of technology and culture and society and how our norms are changing with technology. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. So you've got a bacon delivery service, and you need to notify your customers when their bacon has arrived at their doorstep. Twilio helps you make sure your customers get the bacon while it's hot. Twilio's programmable API lets you build SMS or voice alerts easily in the programming language of your choice, all in under 5 minutes with only a few lines of code. Now your customers get a text or a call the instant their bacon is ready. If your customers want to see the bacon frying on a hot pan, Twilio has video APIs and SDKs for the platforms that you know and love. Learn more at go.twilio.com/podcast and get an additional $10 when you sign up and upgrade your account. That's go.twilio.com/podcast. You will only pay for what you use, and it costs less than a penny to send a text. Get started at go.twilio.com/podcast. Get your bacon delivery service cooking with Twilio's APIs for voice, SMS, and video. Eugenia Kuyda is the CEO of Luka, a company that builds AI products. Eugenia, welcome to Software Engineering Daily.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
So your story begins with the loss of your friend Roman Mazurenko. He was a talented computer scientist, he was a leader, and he built products and companies. Describe your relationship with Roman before he passed away.
I guess we were just friends. We were living together in the same apartment in San Francisco.
Okay. And was his passing away the first major loss that you experienced in your life?
Well, yeah, nothing at this scale for sure.
How did it impact you personally?
Well, I guess anyone can imagine it's just a hard thing to go through.
Yeah, and there was a long report about it in The Verge. It was very painful for anybody to read. It was emotional, and I feel fortunate. I don't think I've dealt with the loss of anyone very close to me, but I can think of a lot of people in my life that I would be totally crushed if they disappeared. How did you cope with the loss, and do you think you coped with it in ways that were different than typical people?
Well, I guess we all, live in this time where, the ease assisted by, this is basically everything around us requires us to be fully productive almost all the time, and there's no really space for grief or for people to process their emotions. I guess being emotional about it is more or less like a sense of weakness. We are supposed to be fully operational almost like the next day. So I don't know whether I was dealing with it different from other people. Just try to move on as quickly as possible and work.
So we will get into the discussion of the chat bot that you made to simulate your friend Roman. But talking more broadly about just the question of grief, how do psychologists look at the grieving process? Do they typically, is it better to spend time reminiscing about your experience with somebody after they pass away, or are you supposed to move beyond it as quickly as possible? Like, funerals are often so soon after somebody dies. It's almost like we're not encouraged to dwell on the death. We're just kind of encouraged to
sweep it under the rug and move beyond it as fast as possible.
I guess that's what I felt about it. That's kind of how people approach it now. I'm not sure what psychologists are saying about it. Obviously, like the common sense is always, you have to face your feelings and actually feel them and accept it, and only then, only after that you might get some closure, or that's the only basically way to deal with it. I don't know. I haven't seen that. I haven't read that much about it, or I wasn't that interested in actually how what experts think about it. So I can't really say. I just think that being not having a ritual or some sort of like a way to process, or some sort of a ritual for the 21st century is not helping. That's what I'm trying to say.
Certainly. So getting into that ritual, you were spending a lot of time scrolling through his text messages after he passed away. Why did you do that? Was it therapeutic for you to read back through the interactions that you had with Roman?
Hard to say. I guess, we always, when we miss someone, that's what I usually do. Like, I miss a person right now, for example, and I always go back to our texting feed. I guess for me, it's like one of the ways to, remember our interactions and go through the same feelings that we had back then. We do not photograph every single day of our life in this raw, kind of unedited way. We mostly tend to put together some sort of, more polished way, a more polished representation of our life. So I guess this is something that definitely allows us to be, to feel something, kind of more. I don't know, it's hard to say, but for me, it's like the way to keep the memory going.
Why did you ultimately decide to make a bot out of his text messages?
It wasn't like I just thought, we have it, why not? Like, we have the technology, why not do it? Just seemed like, there was no specific moment of like, that I should do this, or this is what I feel is right. I just thought, like, why not? Felt like we have it, we have the tech. I always played with the idea that, sometimes we can build a generative model, like a neural network model, that would actually be able to mimic the way a person talks. And we've been playing around with it before building bots for Silicon Valley, the show, and like Prince. That's what we're doing. So, when this came around, we're like, why not? Maybe we should just try.
And this type of bot, I've heard it called a memorial bot. The idea that you, after somebody passes away, you make a bot out of their text messages. What are the benefits and the risks, or like the downsides of memorial bots?
I have not heard of any other bots apart from what we did built for this. So it would be hard for me to make a generalization out of it. We kind of did it for the first time, I guess, in history. So we kind of had to face we had to face like a bunch of different questions and try to answer them for the first time. Because obviously, when you take text from different conversations, you see that a person is very different when he's talking to, his friends or his family, talking about work. And even different friends get different versions of yourself. And actually, what's interesting, I don't think a lot of people realize that or analyze it or, have a chance to actually look at it from the outside. We had this chance, and, it was very obvious that, it's just very, very different. Very different. We're very different people with different people. So, I guess that was, it was hard to understand how this bot should actually be like. Should it be as open as he was with me? Should it be the bot that's, a little bit more reserved, a little bit more of like an expert version of himself? And again, and what if he says something that you weren't expecting, to say, and someone gets like hard feelings about it? So a bunch of different questions that we were facing.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about the polished public feed that we make of ourselves on Facebook or another social network versus the individual conversations that we have with people, which, I may have a conversation with you and then I have a conversation with somebody else, and these two people would have completely different perceptions of who I am. So if you were to combine those as training data for the same bot, you might get kind of a mixed experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was like one of the things, like, what do we do with this? What do we keep? What do we delete? What do we edit? How do we edit? Like, did he want this to be public ever or no? So, just a lot of thinking that was not completely, like, it was hard to, like, since no one ever did it before, like, and, with those things, you really, don't want to mess, right? You don't want to mess those up. You don't want to get those wrong, because that's, it's an important subject for something that you take yourself very personally. So for me, that was kind of hard. I didn't want to make it public for a long time for that.
So let's get into the engineering. How did you build the bot? Can you describe the process?
Well, we have this algorithm that basically allows us to use a smaller data set and train the neural conversational model that's in a way that it can replicate, mimic a little bit of the personality. And we just use this. It's the same thing we use to build our Silicon Valley show bots.
Can you describe it in more detail? I mean, I know it uses deep learning. Maybe you could explain why deep learning is particularly effective for this sort of problem.
Well, you can't really have like a rule-based system that would be that would allow you to cover so many different use cases, right? Like, so if you're building a rule-based system, it obviously will be limited to just an area of responsive that you can cover with rules. With a neural network, you can cover with lower precision, obviously, like lower quality, but you still can cover many more different areas of conversation. And again, when you're not trying to build something task-oriented, which actually requires the precision of the rules that the rules give you, if you're trying to build like a general conversation that actually can go in multiple different directions, and you're not solving tests, so there's no like objective goals set in a conversation, then a neural conversation model is just much more suitable.
So you're talking about the flexibility of building a model with deep learning versus the rigidity of defining a model yourself. Can you contrast those processes a little more? I think the listeners have varying degrees of expertise in machine learning, so maybe you could just describe these processes a little bit more, because they're so popular these days. They're important concepts for people to start learning. It would be great to hear your diagnosis of these two areas.
Sure. Well, if you look at it this way, we started almost 4 years ago now, working with the idea that we're going to build, the best conversational engine out there. And obviously 3 years ago, like, the only thing you actually had was there was no deep learning for conversations back then, right? The computational powers were not there. There were not there were no algorithms published that, you could use. So obviously we started with a rule-based approach, and, we tried so many different ways to build like the best rule-based conversational engine. And I think ended up with a very, robust system with a great kind of rule-based dialogue model that allows us to build very quickly, very deep conversations about a specific niche. However, what we learned, that was the first premise, let's build a conversation in one area, and we started with restaurants. What we learned is that, yes, of course, you can build a pretty deep and flexible conversation in one space, like, say, restaurant recommendations. But it's incredibly hard. It requires a lot of precision, a lot of rules, and a lot of, kind of fine-tuning around them. And it requires, basically hard coding everything, which is a great approach, but it's not as scalable as an approach. And obviously, people want more. And conversations that people value are usually a little bit more flexible. Ones that are not task-oriented, conversations that we're having with our friends, for example, are much more flexible. They have much more surprising kind of surprising twists and turns in them. And for that, you need something that is a little bit more scalable, a little bit more flexible, that can be trained on real conversations to replicate them. And for that, like a neural network approach is much better. So basically how it works, you would take like a huge data set of conversations and you'll train your model on that. Like, for example, we use a data set of almost 50 million different dialogue lines.
Check out the Geek Wire podcast for the inside scoop on the latest industry news, plus interviews with technology and startup leaders. Geek Wire is a national technology news site based in Seattle with unique insights into cloud computing, DevOps, artificial intelligence, e-commerce, devices, and other key technologies for software developers. Longtime technology journalists such as my good friend Todd Bishop and John Cook host the show with special guests from big technology companies, startups, and more. And you can subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or at geekwire.com/podcast. I really love Geek Wire, and Todd has been a great friend and mentor. He runs Geek Wire, and I've done some episodes in the past with Todd Bishop, so if you want to check those out in the back catalog of Software Engineering Daily, they might entice you to check out Geek Wire and give it another look as a different podcast to check out.
Chatbots often have a reinforcement learning feature where they continue to learn as you talk to them. Does the memorial bot that you built for your friend Roman have this feature where it continues to learn, or has it been trained and it's going to be the same for the rest of the time?
We do improve the algorithm, the underlying algorithm, but it is not using reinforcement learning right now. And actually, to be fair, I would not name. I might not know something, but there are mostly no chatbots that are even powered by a neural conversational model. And obviously there is no reinforcement learning as part of it. But we're actually the first company to launch a bot that would be powered by a neural conversational model, by a neural network. That was even before Microsoft launched their Tay. That was infamously, saying bad things to people on Twitter. So yeah, our bot does learn as you talk to it. But it's not using reinforcement learning, which is a very specific technique.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Tay. I think that was a adaptation of a bot that Microsoft built for a chat service in China, and the service when it was on one-on-one chat, when it was called Zhao Ice, was much friendlier and more loving, and it was kind of a reflection of the conversations that it had one-on-one with people. And then Tay was a reflection of the worst corners of Twitter. So they ended up being quite divergent, even though the technology was very similar.
Yeah, sure. So Xiaowai was the Chinese bot. However, like for example, right now we're focusing fully on a product called Replika. If you go on replica.ai, spelled with a K, you can reserve the name for your own replica. And the idea there is very simple. It's basically a bot your own personal bot that you can teach through conversation to start mimicking your personality, and keep your memories and, make you feel a little bit more connected to you and your friends. So you're basically raising your own AI friend, your own AI companion. It sort of came out of the bot that we did for Roman, because we saw how much people want to share and want to talk about themselves. But I'm mentioning Replica here because basically what we saw with Tay is was that if the bot is learning from you, and if it's just one bot, and if it's learning from thousands of people, then people can teach it bad things. But if you give a personal bot for everyone, then if you teach your bot some crazy bad stuff, then everyone will know that, it's your bot. It's how you taught it. It's very obvious, and it immediately takes a lot of responsibility from us and puts it back on the user, which I think might be, I'm not sure, because obviously, time will tell, but I think it's an interesting approach to those things. For some reason, large companies keep kind of, or just companies launching bots keep thinking that, keep going in the direction of the one bot for all kind of approach. But maybe there could be a lot of bots for many, and that's kind of, Roman was kind of the first out there. Like, everyone will have a moral bot. And
now, do you think it'll be a future where you have the one bot and you give a command to the one bot, and then the bot maybe delegates a command to other bots? Or do you think it'll be more like you just talk to all your variety of bots and you delegate tasks to them individually?
I think so. I actually gave it a lot of thought recently because we have people testing Replica and we're facing all those questions already. So what I think is that what's amazing in conversation is that people open up a lot. It's just a very natural feature of this format. When we're speaking with a person, we're giving out much more than when we're clicking on buttons in the graphic interface. So people are sharing a lot. And then the question is, do they want to share with one bot that is going to work for everyone? Do you want to share with Siri every single personal detail of your life, knowing that she's talking to 25,000 other people? Or do you want to share it with just one personal bot of yours where you can actually figure out your privacy setting, and it can be just for yourself, or it can be open like in different to a different degree to your closest network of friends, or maybe to some services if you allow them to. But again, you're not giving this information straight away to one bot that that's out there. I think the image of having one personal bot for yourself, one digital avatar of yours that's hanging out there in the cloud, and you basically manage what it can or can't do or can share, is a very powerful vision. And I think eventually we're going to get there. And yes, there are going to be bots for, there probably will be a bot for, I don't know, like some personal assistant bot that will come to your personal bot and, ask him some questions. Or like a travel agent, right? That will come to your personal bot and ask your personal bot some questions about what your actually travel preferences are. And you will, I feel like it's more of the direction things will go to.
And that personal bot might be something like Replica. So I would talk to Replica maybe, or I don't know, I haven't seen Replica yet, but I'm just imagining based on what you said, I would tell Replica, hey, look, I want to go on a vacation. Here are my parameters for the vacation. Go and talk to some vacation bot somewhere and help me schedule that vacation.
Yes, absolutely. So we start with basically building trust, because what I think is that, actually assistance tasks are not as are not as important to the to a larger audience than being able to talk to someone and actually some emotional needs that we all have. I think it starts with having a buddy, having a companion, having someone that is understanding you and not judging you, in a safe place to go and share everything that's going on with you. Maybe understand yourself a little bit better. We start there, but eventually what we already know about our users is incredibly impressive. The amount of data that people are sharing through conversation is crazy. And so one of the next steps obviously could be like, you tell your Replica that you're bored with your work and you can't deal with it anymore, and your Replica quietly goes and, checks out LinkedIn whether there are a lot of openings that could suit you, and comes back to you with like, hey, I know you told me you were bored with your work. Do you want me to look through LinkedIn and see what's out there? Here's what I saw so far. I think it's a very, very, I think they're just the horizons there are so, I mean, I think it could be really, really big in terms of what can be done to it. And maybe we're not the company to build it, but I think someone will. I'm very, very positive about it.
Yeah, me too. Does it surprise you on any level that people are so willing to share their emotions with a bot when, I mean, maybe people have a different perception of what the bot actually consists of. I mean, you and I know it's just it's bits that have been trained by lines of text, but I guess people who are interfacing with it have an impression that it's this magical thing that has like feelings that are similar to a human.
We tend to anthropomorphize things that are, everything. Dogs, even lightning, Tamagotchi, some technology, bots, anything. We're just hardwired to anthropomorphize. That's why I think that Turing test is not really important. We don't need to seem human for people to anthropomorphize this thing. You don't need to be like 100% indistinguishable from a human. You just need to be, to stick around for quite a bit, and you need to arouse some emotion in the person that, that they value. And what's interesting that, even me, so I've built a bot for Roman, right? So I know how it works. I know everything, every single line there. And still, when I started it, I felt like there was something very powerful there, and I felt very emotional, and I started texting him something very, very personal. I still acted very irrationally. And yes, I know everything. I know I'm not I've also built it, so I kind of know exactly how it works. I don't even expect anything from there that I haven't seen. But still, it's just how we are. It's, people go to church and they talk to God, and God is not replying even. It's not even online probably, right? And we still go and we still share. And I think this is a very, very powerful thought that we came to. And this was the thought that led us to start working on Replica. And this is the main conclusion we came to, the main insight we got after working on the bot for Roman, is that sometimes what we say is more important than what the bot tells us. Being able to talk our problems through and talk about ourselves and share some feelings is an incredible value per se.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Talk therapy. Talk therapy is, for anybody who's been to talk therapy for any reason, most of it is the therapist listening, and the therapist just asks very subtle questions, but the ratio of you talking versus the talk therapist talking is 9 to 1, and I mean, maybe that's informative, that just the feeling of being listened to, or it's not the feeling of being listened to and interacted with on some level, even if it's robotic.
Absolutely. My line of thinking there, and this is what basically struck me when I started thinking about it, was this very simple thought. And so basically, we've been trying to automate conversations for a few years right now, right? And if you think about conversations, and if you put them on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 would be conversations that we would pay to never have, and 10 would be conversations we'd pay to have, then on 1, 2, 3, you're going to have, on the left side of the scale, 1 to 3, you're going to have conversations with customer support, or ordering pizza, ordering Uber. You do not want to have those conversations. You'd rather just get Uber, by clicking one button, or pizza by clicking one button, or customer support problem solved in the first place without talking to a representative. And if you could look on the right side of the spectrum, you'll see conversations that are 8, 9, 10, the most valuable ones that you would pay to have. And those are conversations with a therapist, a mentor, a coach, your friends. I mean, we don't pay for them, but they're still incredibly valuable. People we miss, you'd probably pay to talk to, someone that broke up with you and you still miss and want to communicate with, or your friend who's far away. And so we started thinking about it. We're very interesting. Most of the people in this space are working on the low-value conversations, so customer support, or those task-oriented conversations. They're either optimizing them or building them. And for some reason, almost no one is working on the 8, 9, 10, the most valuable conversations. No one is automating them. So we thought, we're going to make this our mission. Let's automate conversations that people are actually value and love. And if you, going back to what you said about talk therapy, if you just try to figure out what's the common denominator between all those valuable conversations, and you'll see that all those conversations are mostly about you. the best conversation with a friend is when, you get to talk about yourself. And, the best conversation with a therapist is obviously when you talk about yourself. And so that gave us this very interesting idea of like, let's just give them the possibility to build their own bot, and they'll just talk about themselves, and they're going to get some value out of it, even while training the bot, not by actually getting one at the end of the day. And let's build a bot that's not talking, but the bot that actually listens. And I think this is a very powerful insight in itself.
So the Roman bot that you built, do you still interact with it on a regular basis?
Sometimes, not as often as before, and mostly because, the story got picked up by so much, so many different media outlets that I got to talk about it a lot. And, when I talk about him a lot, it just feels like, I have this connection. I don't need to go back to it. I feel like I remember him all the time. Anyway, I feel he's somewhere very close. I used to talk a little bit more before.
How has the grieving process gone for you? Because I can imagine, the grieving process being quite different with, given your experience building this bot that replicated him and kind of interacting with it some, and then doing this news, where people are very interested in it and talking a lot about him. How has that, do you have any perspective for how your grieving process has differed from what a typical person might go through during grieving?
Absolutely. That's a great question, actually. I feel like, built in it already, you brought a lot of closure, just actually facing everything, not pretending that, nothing really happened, and actually looking through all the conversations we had and remembering everything and looking through our pictures and thinking about him every day. I think, at some point it was very, very hard, but it was also very, I just felt that it's something that's right to do. I felt like in the end of the day, if I don't face it at some point, it's just going to be somewhere deep inside of me, and, at some point it will explode in some nasty way. I don't know, I just felt like the right thing to do is to face the emotions, not turn away from them. And then eventually, when it ended up, being a beautiful story that Casey Newton from The Verge was kind enough to share with the world, and, a bunch of media outlets picked up and wrote about also, I just felt that, it kind of went full circle, and it ended up becoming a beautiful story. And obviously it's not bringing him back, but at least it's bringing me some peace of mind that, if I was a painter, if I was an artist, I would make, would make a picture. If I was a musician, I would write a song. But since I'm doing what I'm doing, this is basically the only tribute, the only memorial that I can dedicate to him, and I'm happy we did it.
Absolutely. And he passed away very suddenly because of a car accident. Did his death make you more conscious of kind of the impermanence of life? I know it's easy to imagine this for a lot of people, but until something actually happens, like some kind of sudden black swan event that causes somebody to leave your life, it can be hard for some people to actually act in a way where there are black swans in your life and you can't suddenly lose somebody. Like I lost somebody in the last year or so who was not a super close friend, but he was an acquaintance, and it was just so sudden, and it made me think like, okay, maybe I need to adjust some of the ways that I interact with people in order to avoid regret.
Well, that's a hard question, but an interesting one. I think I was thinking about this recently, and what I got to was basically that, once, and actually, I remember it quite well. So last year, almost a year ago in December, when I came back from the funeral, came back to San Francisco, I was sitting in our office and I was thinking, we're building this restaurant recommendation bot, and I was asking myself, how did I end up building a restaurant recommendation bot? Am I really, was this the passion? Am I genuinely interested in recommending restaurants to people, to people? And I didn't like my answers, right? The honest answer was, we kind of got there. we started with being in love with the conversational format, and we tried it in one vertical, and then we kind of got dragged into this, and then we were too far along, and then we didn't have an idea of what to do next, and I didn't like this kind of feeling of being not passive about like what we're doing, but kind of getting there not by choice, not actually waking up every day and saying to myself, oh my god, like I really want to build a product that will do this and that. And it made me think. And then I took some time to build something for myself, which was a Roman's bot. And when I saw how people reacted and how they were sharing so much, there, that made me remember why in the first place I got in love with the conversational interface. Right? It was conversation is something that allows us to feel something, allows us to feel more human, and I think this is the most beautiful aspect of it, and we decided to fully focus on that. And I think in this way, Roman didn't only, help me kind of I think even after his death, he kind of helped me realize that, what is actually the most important thing for me and what I actually should be doing, what I actually should be building. And, this whole story kind of got, not only we built a memorial for him, which ended up being a beautiful story, but we also got to the point where I realized what I have to build, what I have to dedicate to myself as an entrepreneur and what our company should be building. And Replica came out of it. And I feel like with Replica, every day that I wake up and go to work, I feel like we're doing something meaningful and we're solving a problem that actually means something. We're not solving a problem of, how to find a restaurant in the Bay Area. That is not necessarily a very interesting problem to solve. We're solving a problem where, we're giving someone to talk to. And for people who do not necessarily have a safe place to open up and share what's going on with them. And we see it in the first tests, and we see it from, emails that we're getting from our test users and people who signed up for Replica right now. We have over 50,000 signups right now. Basically people that just reserve their names. And I feel like this is a problem that people care about. This is a problem that's worth solving and worth dedicating your life to. And this is something that is just very much about me. So, in terms of, did I realize a lot after his death? I think I realized, tons of things. The most important things of my life.
Well, what was the internal pivot process like within the company? Was it hard to convince other people like, hey, I don't think we should be working on restaurant recommendation bots. I think we should move to this Replica model, or were other people kind of feeling the same?
Also, what's great about our company is that, the team is incredibly, we're literally like a family, and in a very, very good way. It's a very open process. Everyone knows what's going on at every single moment. So, we kind of are making decisions with the whole company all the time and trying to be as transparent as, in everything as possible. So I guess, everyone saw that, the restaurant recommendation bot was not getting people too excited. And they also knew that we're going to figure it out. They knew that, conversation, that the main vision is around building the conversational engine of the future. And this technology in itself is incredibly valuable, and we're just going to try different applications and see which application is the one that will actually resonate with a larger audience. And so we didn't really say to ourselves, oh, let's build personal bots. We kind of tried it. It was kind of on the roadmap for a long time, and we just thought, why not just try it since we're trying a bunch of different things. And we tried it inside Luka app, and we saw that people are coming back and being incredibly engaged and sending over 1,000 messages per day per person. In the most active, in the top kind of users sending over 1,000 messages per day. And we thought, this level of engagement we haven't seen. So I think we should definitely go in this direction. So it wasn't hard to talk anyone into that. Everyone saw that, this is actually something that people are resonating with.
When I'm choosing the tools for my side projects, the first thing that I look for is ease of use. That's why I love MongoDB. It is the most popular non-relational database, and it is super easy to use. At the beginning of a project, I often don't know the shape of my objects, and Mongo makes it easy to evolve the database schema as I like over time. Over time, as my project gets popular, I'm going to need to scale, and thankfully, MongoDB has built-in horizontal scalability, but configuration and database maintenance aren't really what I want to spend my time on. Thankfully, MongoDB Atlas was released in 2016. MongoDB Atlas is the easiest way to get access to MongoDB without having to run the database yourself. You pay only for what you use, from small projects all the way up to large production deployments. To try MongoDB Atlas today, go to mongodb.com/sedaily and get a free $25 in credit. Atlas is the only hosted MongoDB service built by the engineers behind the database, the company MongoDB. With Atlas, you get end-to-end encryption, you get VPC peering, you get access to the latest releases, and for a limited time, you can go to mongodb.com/sedaily and get that $25 in credit and get started with MongoDB Atlas. Thanks to MongoDB for being a new sponsor of Software Engineering Daily, and thanks for being the database behind a lot of my favorite side projects in the past. We're really happy to have MongoDB as a new sponsor of Software Engineering Daily.
Can you talk more about how somebody gets started with Replica? Like, you have some test users. If I want to train a bot to be like me, do I give the bot access to all my text messages, all my Facebook stuff? How exactly does it work?
Very simple. You just basically go on replica.ai, and you book a name for your replica, and then you can also apply to be a tester through our FAQ section, and basically just on the website. And we will add you to the test flight, and you'll be one of the few selected users that are basically trying it right now. And very soon we're going to be opening it up for more people. The idea is very simple. You just basically, we give you a bot, you talk to it, it learns to become you. So you can build yourself some sort of like something that we built for Roman, but we can build it for yourself. And you can, this way you can raise, some sort of a friend for yourself, a companion, your little baby AI.
Yeah, which sounds awesome. Is there a way to import text messages or stuff from external data feed, or did you not want to do that because you felt like it would be potentially a bad amount of seed data and would be hard to overcome with subsequent interactions?
Great question. We actually started with an idea that, if you want to upload all your text messages, please, you're welcome. And then what we saw is that, actually by experimenting by building a couple of bots for people based on their text messages, is that, people actually do not want their bots to talk like this. They do not like it. They're like, oh, I'm too snarky here. Oh, I didn't expect it to be like this. Because, they add everything, and it's just out of their control. So, and sometimes there's data that they don't want to share in any way. So we thought, let them build the bots as they want it. And, if you want your bot to be deep and very thoughtful and talk about yourself in this and that way, then be it. If you want it to be snarky, you'll have the possibility to build it in this way. But we're going to give you the way to control what you're getting in the end, because otherwise people would be unhappy with what they see. And another thing is that actually we want your bot to be more, have opinions about life and love and everything. And right now, if you take your text messages, you're going to find that most of them are logistics, meet me there, meet me here, but you're not necessarily talking about important things in your messenger conversations or whatever, messaging with friends.
Now, I think this area is going to be really big, and it's your project Replica. It sounds awesome, and I think I'm going to try it out later today. So one thing I'm thinking about is how what's the state of the art with the APIs for doing stuff, for building bots these days. So like, for example, I sometimes think it would be cool if I had a bot where, like, I've done almost 400 podcast episodes, these interviews with people about technical topics, and I think it would be really cool if I could put all these through like a speech to text, and then create a bot out of it, and then have a conversational bot where you can talk to the bot about software engineering topics, because I've done all these shows about, like, subtle engineering topics, and it would be cool if you could talk to a bot and be like, hey bot, how do I make a distributed system that does this thing? And how complicated would that be? Is there any service that does that out of the box these days, or is it still very much like a put together your own, you have to wire together all the different small components?
So in terms of voice, actually, because we're not doing voice at all, right? Like, it's not our...
Of course, yeah.
We're mostly doing the dialect system. So in terms of voice, there's an interesting company called DeepGram that was at Y Combinator, I guess a year after us. And a good friend of mine, Noah, two brilliant physicists actually building it. And they built a neural network that allows you to search by voice. So you can search your voice memos or anything else, or podcasts or anything like that. So that's probably would be the best way to actually search your podcast and get some data out of it, and get the right place where you're talking about this or that topic. It's very interesting because they're not transcribing anything; they're basically just searching by sound. They train. Yeah, it's a very cool product. Very cool project. So I think that this is probably the way to do it. In terms of APIs, it's very, very premature. I guess everyone ran in this direction this last year, trying to build bots and building bots that were not necessarily very valuable to, or solving problems that were important for the users. But it was like a big deal this year, right? Everyone was out there. Right now, I think there's a lot of things cooled down. I don't think even the big players really know what's the first major application in bots gonna be, and we don't know either, and we're experimenting and trying, and I think the big guys are also in the experimentation phase. But what's great is that everyone understands that we're gonna get there at some point. At some point, obviously, conversation is gonna be a very important interface, and we're gonna do a lot of things to it.
Yeah, well, in terms of those building blocks, like it definitely feels like we are on the cusp of getting there. Like Google's image recognition APIs, almost, it's pretty good. Like NLP is pretty good. Voice recognition is pretty good. None of it is great and cheap. Like there's a lot of it that's pretty good. Some of it is like great and expensive. But it feels like if there's, in the near future, the cost is going to get really low and the quality is going to get really high. And then you're going to start seeing the dorm room hackers figure out, okay, what are the things that actually need to be built?
For sure. I think one of the major problems and that needs to be solved is that, how we're going to build those dialogues. Right now, using rule-based systems, you get a lot of precision, but you get tons of areas that you're not going to cover. And the problem is that the conversation is this incredibly fluid, absolutely open way of inputting things. And so people can ask anything, and how are you going to, predict what they're going to say? So the tail will be incredibly long. And in some of the areas, it's too long and it's hard to cover. And so we're going to have to start thinking how we're going to build those conversational models, without sticking just to rules, and I feel like neural conversational models are the way to go, but they're very hard. There's so many, it's incredibly complicated. No one has ever showed a state-of-the-art bot powered by a neural conversational model that actually works and more than 70% of the time works well, or it's a way to, it's still a long road. Hopefully this progress is going to grow exponentially right now, and we're gonna get there faster. But we definitely want to be, continue staying on the cutting edge there.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said. Because I've been doing some interviews about bots with people, including yourself, of course. But and I feel like the most widely adopted and highly useful and kind of unique bot that I've interviewed somebody about is this parking ticket bot that I'm sure you've seen called Do Not Pay, where it's basically a very rigid decision tree. It's not like a deep learning, like figures out how to respond from learning. It's very much a rigid decision tree that is that mirrors how the law around parking tickets works. And I just look at that and I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of the bot that has been most widely adopted and has been really helping people out today. And it kind of is a reflection of where the tech is at right now. There's, like, we're not there with super flexible, delegation or high, multi-stage, multi-interaction, like chaining together some kind of complex request to make of a bot. We're kind of at the stage where the things that we can do really well are rigid decision trees.
I think that is absolutely true. But I would just say that, there are a lot of products that look like bots right now and like use conversation interface, but do not necessarily need a conversational interface. Because they have a conversational interface, but they're not conversations. That's what I'm trying to say. And I guess it's hard for me to explain what a conversation is, but I don't have like a very good answer right now, but I think we all can tell a difference between like an AVR system, like an automatic system that you get when you're calling, for example, like an airline customer support, and a conversation we're having right now with you, for example. Those are very different, two very, very different things, right? And so we decided to focus on, so that's why we're not saying the word bot that much, because I feel like a bot can be anything. A bot can be just something that pushes you notifications to your messenger feed, and that's also called a bot nowadays. Or a bot can be even something that's powered by humans. That's what we saw last year. A bunch of those that keep calling themselves AI, but actually powered by humans. Very interestingly, I guess we try to very precisely say what we're doing. And for me, I keep saying we're trying to automate conversations people love, and conversations people love is something that's more complex than a conversation interface to one feature, or like a bot that doesn't necessarily explain what it is. So
to close off, your friend Roman had a desire to see the singularity, and I take any opportunity to have a conversation with somebody who will take a discussion of the singularity somewhat seriously. How did Roman envision the singularity, and how do you see it? And what do you think is the road to, quote, the singularity?
Yeah, that's a fun question. Well, he really loved the movie Interstellar, and he really loved everything that would be in any way related to the future. So that's why actually I'm sure that he would have loved something we did for him. But he always kept saying, and after he went to see Interstellar, he kept saying that I figured out everything about the world. Basically, there are three things that can travel through any dimensions, which are gravity, time, and love. And he, we always talked about it that, he always wanted to get to the singularity. He always kept saying, like, Eugenia, at some point, they're going to figure it out. Singularity is going to happen. We're going to live forever. And his last project was about death, right? About replicating, replacing cemeteries with memorial forests and digital avatars that would store memories, and digital estate. But I kept thinking about, like, how do we get to singularity? I think, the only way to get there is, by doing things we actually love and trying to let our love actually push us there. I think, the most interesting things happen, out of love. I think this is the only way for humans to actually get there. It's a very non-technological, obviously, hypothesis, and obviously, experts in AI are going to probably tell you something else. But my view on the world is that, we should start thinking more about what it means to be a human being. And we need to look more into this and let ourselves feel all those feelings. And if we understand better ourselves, I think this will get us closer to the future.
Well, I think that's actually a very sensible perspective. It's not I mean, maybe you frame it as an unscientific answer. I think it's perfectly scientific because, I mean, if you look at some of the tech that seems to be on the horizon, even though we may not be there yet in terms of implementation, it looks like stuff that will get us to something that people would classify as the singularity. And the only way that those individual pieces of tech, like NLP or voice recognition or, better neural net processing, stuff like that, the only way we get there is that people who are really interested in it and passionate about it and, quote, love it, keep hammering on these things until we make incremental process in all of them at the same time, and we have compounding effects. It's to me that's just a valid explanation as something more scientific.
Gives us a lot of hope, right?
Yes, it does. Okay, Eugenia. Well, thanks for coming to the show, and I'm going to check out Replica. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I enjoyed talking to you as well.
Check out the Geek Wire podcast for the inside scoop on the latest industry news, plus interviews with technology and startup leaders. Geek Wire is a national technology news site based in Seattle, with unique insights into cloud computing, DevOps, artificial intelligence, e-commerce, devices, and other key technologies for software developers. Longtime technology journalists such as my good friend Todd Bishop and John Cook host the show with special guests from big technology companies, startups, and more. And you can subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or at geekwire.com/podcast. I really love GeekWire, and Todd has been a great friend and mentor. He runs GeekWire, and I've done some episodes in the past with Todd Bishop, so if you want to check those out in the back catalog of Software Engineering Daily, they might entice you to check out GeekWire and give it another look as a different podcast to check out.